With us here in the studio is Gideon Adibe, a professor of international relations and political science at the Nasarawa State University. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thank
U.S.
you.
election, generating conversations, even in the hinterlands of Nigeria, children are also, pitching, pitching tents. Now, let's talk about the election going on now, and perhaps one sore point that many, even Americans, still find it difficult to understand is the electoral college. I think it's a better place for us to start this conversation. How much of it do the people, understand, knowing full well that this is not about a simple majority?
I think they know, and it's actually very close to proportional representation because the electoral college system itself is dependent on the population of the states. So if you look at California, that has, I think, 37 million people, you see it has the highest electoral college vote of 54. Then in Pennsylvania, they are struggling for maybe has 9. The 7 swing states in total will have I think 94 electoral college votes. So it's allocated just like we do with our Federal House of Representatives. Of course, in recent years, there have been conversations in the U.S. on whether they should move to popular votes. And just like in the U.K., they have conversations also whether they should jettison the parliamentary system. All these conversations go around in countries from time to time. But I think the politicians understand it, and they know it's not in 2000. Gore won the popular vote and still lost the election. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and still lost. So it's their peculiarity, and I think it's part of their own political traditions.
Very interesting tradition too. Now let's talk about the rhetoric so far, especially in the dying days of the campaign. What Trump's messaging has persistently been, and Harris seeming to, sound a bit more conciliatory. But more importantly, whoever comes tops, why should we care about who wins this election? What would it mean for Nigeria?
I think it's obvious that America is a dominant power for now. I mean, dominant in the sense is some people have challenged the idea whether we should call it, a unipolar. Some people have said there are other forces around. In fact, if you look at the BRICS and Russia, the whole idea of BRICS is actually to create a multipolar world. Yeah. I've heard people say, well, Trump will be very isolationist, but also embeds in it opportunities for Nigeria and African countries. He has what they call Make America Great Again. At the same time, there's what is called Truman Doctrine in the U.S., which came in 1947, which simply says it is part of American foreign policy that anytime you see then Soviet Union expanding, it becomes an article of faith that you should contain it, contain the expansion. So increasingly, since Putin from 2000, and Putin started to research power on the global political ecosystem, there have also been moves to contain Russian power. And in fact, some of us believe, if you follow that Truman Doctrine, that the Ukraine war, they are turning it into Vietnam for Russia as part of the efforts to contain it. That's why it's been armed. So what is likely to happen is that if Trump wins, he's likely to ask NATO, take more responsibilities. He's even going to go into trade war with Europe, not just China. But how does it affect us? Now, because they are trying China's influence in Africa, they blamed it on the fact that America and the European powers, they took their eyes away from the ball. So China gained a foothold. So at the same time as they are fighting trade war, they're also trying to contain China and trying to contain Russia. So he's not likely, as much he would like to be isolationist, he cannot, because you still have to contain the rising power of China and Russia in Africa. So that's again presents some opportunities for us that I will be critical of multiple dependencies. Now I'm going to depend on Russia, depend on China for aid, but to be able to fashion out creative policies that will enable you to make the best out of their rivalries.
You know, listening to you and also following up the election campaigns leading up to this day, what do you think resonates more with most Americans, knowing full well that some of the key concerns or an analysis just, exposed here are international, as against domestic affairs of the everyday American, which, if you recall, in his first term, President Trump at that point in time said America first. So how much of that understanding or that love for the Americans to look inward has the campaign shown?
I think he's still playing on the same harp that, if you contend China, then American companies will blossom again. You bring back American companies that have gone to tax havens. That's one of the things. So there will be more prosperous. In fact, people believe economy was better under him. But then there are also extraneous factors like Ukraine war, which led to, imported inflation across the world as a result of what we call the globalization of markets. So if you look back, it seemed that economy was doing better under him. And also, whether it was by luck or accident, there were less international strifes. And people were believing that it was the force of his personality. That might be true or might not be true. But one thing that I find very exciting is, because it will be the first time, not first time, to deal with a woman and a woman of color. Yeah. And they are so close in the polls, is something, both a benefit for Kamala Harris. It's also another thing called Bradley effect, where if you are running against a white candidate, there's also what they call social desirability bias. You don't want to be accused of racism, so even if you voted for, you say, no, I can't vote. It's socially undesirable to say you're supporting, Trump. So we don't know. All we know is that if either Kamala Harris or Trump is being underrepresented in the poll by even 0.5%, the person wins.
It will make a lot of difference.
But another thing that I found interesting in reading the recent thing is about over 7 million people have voted in early voting. And polls show that Kamala Harris was leading 8%. Now, polls of those who have not voted yet but say they are sure they will win, they will vote. They're leaning towards Trump. So very
quickly, in 30 seconds, would you say, based on some of the things we're hearing, fraud, something that looks like vote buying and what have you, is rearing the heads in American democracy? Is the United States losing its place as a bastion of democracy gradually?
Well, democracy, as we know it, is in regression across the world, and it's not just if you look at Europe. Right-wing rhetorics are being mainstreamed. But that is typical of Trump, who, brought certain things that we never heard of before in this, rigging and all those kind of, that you associate with our climb. But I think in the end, the institutions of American institutions are resilient enough.
Right. That's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much. Jideofor Adibe is a professor of international relations and political science at Nasarawa State University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.